Welcome to TrueCrime Unveiled Podcast. Dive deep into the mysteries that captivate us. If you appreciate this episode, please consider liking and subscribing to support us.
The cobbled streets of Perugia, Italy, a city steeped in history and beauty, became the backdrop for a chilling crime that gripped the world's attention. In 2007, the life of Meredith Kercher, a British exchange student, was tragically cut short in the apartment she shared with American student Amanda Knox. The ensuing investigation and trial would become a tangled web of forensic evidence, conflicting testimonies, and international intrigue. This case, shrouded in mystery and controversy, continues to fascinate and divide, raising questions about justice, media influence, and the very nature of truth. We begin our exploration by setting the scene, painting a picture of Perugia and the individuals whose lives would soon become inextricably linked by this tragic event.
Picture this: a quaint Italian town, seemingly untouched by the harsh realities of the world. A place where students from across the globe gather to experience the rich culture and vibrant life. Meredith Kercher, a bright and promising student from the UK, was one such individual. She had arrived in Perugia, eager to immerse herself in Italian life, to learn the language, and to forge new friendships. She found a home in a shared apartment with Amanda Knox, an American student known for her outgoing personality. Their initial interactions seemed ordinary, the everyday exchanges of roommates navigating a new environment together. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly normal student life, a storm was brewing. An undercurrent of tension, perhaps unnoticed by many, would soon erupt into a tragedy that would shatter the tranquility of Perugia and leave an enduring mark on the lives of all involved.
The narrative surrounding the Amanda Knox case is complex, layered with conflicting accounts and interpretations. We'll delve into the timeline of events leading up to the discovery of Meredith Kercher's body, meticulously examining the details that would later become central to the investigation. We will explore the initial interactions between Amanda Knox, her then-boyfriend Raffaele Sollecito, and Rudy Guede, another individual who would become implicated in the case. By piecing together the fragments of information available, we aim to provide a comprehensive understanding of the circumstances surrounding this tragic event. The goal is not to offer definitive answers, for in a case as convoluted as this, definitive answers may remain elusive. Rather, we aim to present a thorough examination of the facts, allowing listeners to draw their own conclusions.
In the days leading up to the discovery, there were seemingly mundane occurrences that, in retrospect, would take on a different significance. A broken window, a misplaced key, a seemingly insignificant conversation. These details, initially overlooked, would later become crucial pieces of the puzzle investigators were trying to assemble. We will examine the relationships between the key players in this drama, exploring the dynamics between Meredith and her roommates, as well as the burgeoning relationship between Amanda Knox and Raffaele Sollecito. By understanding the interpersonal connections, we can begin to unravel the complex web of interactions that preceded the tragic events of November 1, 2007, the day Meredith Kercher's life was tragically cut short. Person 1 greater than, person 1 greater than. Before the tragedy that shook Perugia, Meredith Kercher was experiencing the vibrancy of Italian life. She was a 21-year-old exchange student from the University of Leeds, eager to immerse herself in a new culture. Perugia, a picturesque hilltop town in Umbria, offered a rich tapestry of history, art, and vibrant student life. Meredith embraced it all. She had found a charming apartment in a historic building on Via della Pergola, sharing it with Amanda Knox, an American student, and two Italian women. Imagine narrow, winding cobblestone streets, the scent of freshly baked bread wafting from local bakeries, the lively chatter of students spilling out from cafes. That was the Perugia Meredith knew. She quickly made friends, both local and international, drawn to her bright personality and adventurous spirit. Her days were filled with exploring ancient Etruscan ruins, attending lectures at the Università per Stranieri, and savoring delicious Umbrian cuisine.
Yes, Perugia was known for its relative tranquility, a safe haven for students and residents alike. Life revolved around the Piazza Ervi Novembre, the heart of the city, where the majestic Fontana Maggiore stands. Picture this: the gentle splashing of water from the fountain, the rhythmic chiming of the cathedral bells, the murmur of conversations in the cafes lining the square. This was the backdrop of Meredith's Italian adventure. She was known for her warmth and kindness, her genuine interest in getting to know people and their stories. Witnesses recall her frequent phone calls home to her family in Coulsdon, Surrey, sharing her excitement about her experiences and the new friends she was making. Her life in Perugia seemed idyllic, a dream come true for a young woman eager to embrace the world. The community was close-knit, and the arrival of international students each year was a welcomed tradition, injecting fresh energy into the town. There was a sense of shared experience, a feeling of security that permeated the community.
Meredith was particularly drawn to the artistic and historical aspects of Perugia. She visited the Galleria Nazionale dell'Umbria, captivated by the masterpieces of Italian Renaissance painting. She explored the Rocca Paolina, a massive fortress built by Pope Paul III in the 16th century, its imposing structure a testament to Perugia's rich past. These experiences fueled her passion for learning and her desire to understand the world around her. She wrote frequently in her journal, documenting her adventures, her thoughts, and her observations about Italian life. These entries paint a picture of a young woman full of life, with a deep appreciation for beauty and a thirst for new experiences. The tranquility of Perugia allowed her to fully immerse herself in this journey of self-discovery, fostering a sense of peace and belonging.
And that sense of peace was tragically shattered on the night of November 1, 2007. The discovery of Meredith's body in her apartment on Via della Pergola sent shockwaves through the community. The idyllic image of Perugia was irrevocably altered, replaced by fear, suspicion, and a profound sense of loss. The vibrant student life that characterized the town was muted, replaced by a somber atmosphere of disbelief. The investigation that followed would expose a dark undercurrent beneath the surface of this seemingly peaceful town, revealing a complex web of relationships, secrets, and ultimately, violence.
The autumn of 2007 in Perugia, Italy, was picturesque, the kind of setting you see on postcards. The rolling Umbrian hills were ablaze with the colors of fall, and the ancient city was bustling with students returning for the new academic year. Amanda Knox, a bright-eyed 20-year-old from Seattle, Washington, was one of them. She had arrived just weeks earlier, eager to immerse herself in Italian culture and language. Knox shared an apartment with Meredith Kercher, a British exchange student, and two Italian women. They lived in a quaint cottage on Via della Pergola, a street that wound its way up through the heart of the city. Neighbors recall the girls as appearing happy and carefree, often seen laughing and chatting together. Life seemed idyllic, almost a dream, in those early days. There was a palpable sense of anticipation, a new chapter unfolding for these young women.
Yes, the initial portrayal of life in Perugia was indeed one of youthful exuberance and shared experiences. Knox and Kercher, along with their roommates, seemed to be settling into their new environment. They explored the city's historic streets, sampled local cuisines, and navigated the complexities of a foreign culture together. Witnesses described seeing them shopping for groceries, attending classes, and socializing at local bars. There was a sense of normalcy, of everyday routines being established. This seemingly ordinary backdrop makes the events that followed all the more jarring, a stark contrast to the peaceful image that had been initially painted. It's important to remember this ordinary beginning because it helps us to understand the shock and disbelief that rippled through the community when the idyllic facade was shattered.
The tranquility of that autumn was abruptly shattered on November 2, 2007. Police were summoned to the Via della Pergola cottage after a frantic call from Knox's boyfriend, Raffaele Sollecito. The scene they encountered was horrific. Meredith Kercher was found lifeless in her bedroom, the victim of a brutal murder. The discovery sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community of Perugia and far beyond. The picturesque image of Perugia, the vibrant student life, all of it was instantly overshadowed by the dark cloud of this violent crime. The investigation that followed was complex and, at times, chaotic. The idyllic setting now became the backdrop for a tragic mystery. The charming streets transformed into a hunting ground for clues.
Indeed, the discovery of Kercher's body marked a dramatic turning point. The investigation quickly intensified, and the focus shifted from the idyllic student life to the grim reality of a murder scene. Investigators began meticulously combing through the cottage, searching for any trace of evidence that could shed light on what had transpired. The once charming cottage on Via della Pergola became a focal point of intense scrutiny, a place where ordinary life had intersected with unspeakable violence. The very air seemed to change, charged with tension and suspicion. The initial perception of a peaceful, vibrant community began to unravel, revealing a darker undercurrent beneath the surface.
In this segment, we delve into the grim discovery that shook the picturesque Italian town of Perugia. It was November 2, 2007. Meredith Kercher, a 21-year-old British exchange student, was found lifeless in her bedroom in the cottage she shared with Amanda Knox and two Italian women. The initial assessment by investigators painted a disturbing scene. Meredith's body was partially covered by a duvet, and her throat had been brutally slashed. The room showed signs of a struggle, with overturned furniture and bloodstains. This gruesome scene immediately set off a frantic search for answers and ignited an international media frenzy that would follow the case for years to come. The quaint university town, known for its historical charm, was suddenly thrust into the global spotlight for a very different reason. The investigation began immediately, with local authorities focusing their attention on the inhabitants of the cottage and their connections to Meredith.
The initial stages of the investigation were crucial, and the details are particularly harrowing. The door to Meredith's bedroom was locked, and it appeared that a window had been broken to stage a potential burglary. However, certain aspects of the scene didn't quite fit the narrative of a random break-in. Valuable items, including cash and electronics, were left untouched. This led investigators to suspect that the burglary might have been staged to mislead the police. The state of the room, with its mixture of apparent chaos and seemingly undisturbed areas, raised questions about the sequence of events leading to Meredith's death. The physical evidence collected at the scene, including DNA samples and fingerprints, became central to the investigation as authorities sought to piece together what transpired that night. The discovery of Meredith's body marked the beginning of a long and complex legal battle that would captivate and divide public opinion worldwide.
The timeline surrounding the discovery of Meredith's body is particularly significant. Amanda Knox and her then-boyfriend, Raffaele Sollecito, were among the first to alert the authorities. According to their initial statements, they had returned to the cottage after spending the night at Sollecito's apartment and found the front door ajar and blood in the bathroom. They subsequently called the police. However, inconsistencies began to emerge in their accounts of the night's events. Their behavior at the crime scene, which some observers described as unusual, also drew attention. The police began scrutinizing their movements and interactions in the days leading up to the murder, meticulously piecing together a timeline of their activities and searching for any potential connections to the crime. The early stages of the investigation were marked by a sense of urgency, as investigators worked tirelessly to gather evidence and establish a clear picture of what had happened.
Adding another layer of complexity to the investigation was the discovery of a third individual's involvement, Rudy Guede, a local man. His fingerprints and DNA were found at the crime scene, placing him squarely within the investigation's focus. Guede's connection to the cottage and to Meredith remained unclear initially, but the forensic evidence provided a strong link. His presence at the scene raised questions about his potential role in the events that led to Meredith's death, and whether he acted alone or with accomplices. The focus on Guede added another dimension to the already intricate investigation, and further fueled public speculation as the authorities worked to unravel the truth. The discovery of his involvement added another piece to the puzzle, although it was a piece that generated more questions than immediate answers.
The discovery of Meredith Kercher's body sent shockwaves through the tight-knit student community in Perugia. The initial scene was chaotic and disturbing, marked by a forced entry and signs of a violent struggle. Investigators immediately began collecting evidence, meticulously documenting the details within the cottage. The quaint university town, typically bustling with life, was suddenly cast under a shadow of fear and uncertainty. Students, both local and international, were on edge, wondering who could have committed such a brutal crime, and if they, too, were in danger. The idyllic image of Perugia was shattered, replaced by a sense of vulnerability and dread. The media descended upon the town, transforming the quiet streets into a stage for a global drama that was about to unfold. Every corner seemed to whisper with unanswered questions, and the search for truth began in earnest.
The investigation quickly focused on those closest to Meredith, including her American roommate, Amanda Knox, and Knox's then-boyfriend, Raffaele Sollecito. Their behavior in the immediate aftermath of the murder raised questions among investigators. Witness accounts described what some perceived as inappropriate or unusual conduct, fueling speculation and suspicion. The intense media scrutiny amplified these observations, contributing to a rapidly evolving public perception of the case. The focus on Knox and Sollecito intensified, and they became central figures in a complex and increasingly convoluted narrative. The pressure on the investigators to find answers was immense, with the world watching and waiting for justice to be served. The early stages of the investigation were crucial, setting the tone for the legal battles that would ensue.
The timeline of events surrounding the murder became a focal point of the investigation. Reconstructing the movements of key individuals in the days and hours leading up to the discovery of Meredith's body proved challenging. Conflicting accounts and fragmented memories added layers of complexity to the puzzle. Investigators painstakingly pieced together witness statements, phone records, and forensic evidence to establish a clear sequence of events. However, the timeline remained a source of contention throughout the legal proceedings, with various interpretations and challenges presented by the defense. Understanding the precise sequence of events was crucial for determining who was where and when, and ultimately, for establishing culpability. The timeline became a battlefield of its own, with each side fighting to establish their version of the truth.
As days turned into weeks, the fear in Perugia intensified. The lack of immediate answers and the growing media frenzy contributed to a sense of unease. Rumors and speculations spread like wildfire, further complicating the investigation and fueling public anxiety. The international attention brought with it immense pressure, demanding swift justice for Meredith Kercher. Every move made by investigators was scrutinized, every theory dissected by armchair detectives and legal experts around the globe. The case became a global obsession, with millions following the unfolding drama and forming their own opinions about the guilt or innocence of the accused. The small Italian town was now at the center of a worldwide storm, and the pressure to find the truth was mounting.
Let's delve deeper into Amanda Knox's psychological profile during the investigation. The media portrayed her as an enigmatic figure, dubbing her Foxy Knoxy, a nickname that seemed to clash starkly with the gravity of the situation. Some observers noted a seeming detachment, an almost inappropriate calmness in her demeanor during the initial questioning. This apparent lack of overt grief was interpreted by some as a sign of guilt, fueling public suspicion. However, others argued that this could be a coping mechanism, a way to deal with the immense pressure and trauma of being in a foreign country, accused of a horrific crime. Experts suggest that individuals react to trauma in vastly different ways, and stoicism shouldn't be automatically equated with guilt. The question remains, was this a performance of innocence or a genuine reaction to an unimaginable ordeal?
It's a crucial point. We have to consider the cultural context as well. Knox was a young American woman in Italy, a country with a different legal system and cultural expectations around expressing grief. What might be perceived as normal behavior in one culture could be easily misconstrued in another. The intense media scrutiny undoubtedly exacerbated the situation, adding another layer of complexity to her reactions. The constant presence of cameras, the relentless questioning, and the public dissection of her every move could have led to a kind of emotional paralysis. It's vital to remember that outward appearances can be deceiving, and judging someone's internal state based solely on their external behavior can be a dangerous path to tread in any investigation, especially one as high profile as this.
Absolutely. And this is where the psychological analysis becomes so critical. Experts brought in to assess her behavior offered conflicting interpretations. Some suggested that her seemingly carefree demeanor, observed in some video footage taken shortly after the murder, indicated a lack of remorse. Others pointed to her documented cooperation with the police, her willingness to provide DNA samples, and her repeated assertions of innocence as signs of someone wrongfully accused. The challenge, of course, lies in separating genuine behavior from potential manipulation. Could she have been consciously or subconsciously adopting a certain persona to influence the investigation? It's a question that continues to be debated even now.
The contradictions in her outward identity, as portrayed in the media, further complicated the public's perception. On one hand, there were the accounts of her apparent normalcy, engaging in seemingly inappropriate behavior given the circumstances. On the other hand, there were reports of her distress, her fear, and her insistence that she had nothing to do with Meredith Kercher's death. This dichotomy fueled the narrative of a complex, possibly manipulative individual. The prosecution leaned heavily on this perceived duality, portraying her as capable of deception and violence, contrasting her outward persona with the brutal nature of the crime. This raises the crucial question of how reliable psychological profiling is in criminal investigations, especially when cultural differences and media influence play such significant roles.
Let's delve into the complexities of the investigation, specifically some of the more perplexing aspects. One element that has drawn considerable scrutiny is the handling of the initial crime scene. While investigators quickly focused on Knox and Sollecito, some argue that a broader, more methodical approach might have yielded different results. For instance, the lack of thorough DNA testing on certain pieces of evidence, particularly the knife believed to be the murder weapon, raises questions about the completeness of the forensic analysis. There were also reports of potential contamination at the crime scene, further muddying the waters and raising doubts about the reliability of the evidence collected. These oversights and potential missteps understandably fueled criticisms about the investigation's thoroughness and contributed to the protracted legal battles that followed.
Adding to the complexity of the investigation were the communications received by the police. One particular communication, an anonymous letter, claimed to have knowledge of the murder and pointed fingers at a local business owner. This led investigators down a rabbit hole, diverting resources and attention away from other potential leads. While the letter was ultimately deemed unreliable, it exemplifies the challenges faced by law enforcement in sifting through a deluge of information, some of which was intentionally misleading or simply irrelevant. The investigation, already under intense public scrutiny, was further hampered by these distractions, creating an environment ripe for speculation and conspiracy theories.
The media frenzy surrounding the case also played a significant role, particularly in shaping public perception. Early reports often portrayed Knox in a negative light, emphasizing her perceived aloofness and unconventional behavior. This media narrative, coupled with leaked details from the investigation, created a powerful and often prejudicial backdrop against which the legal proceedings unfolded. The intense media scrutiny, while arguably part and parcel of high-profile cases, undoubtedly influenced public opinion and arguably complicated the pursuit of justice. The constant bombardment of information, much of it speculative or sensationalized, made it difficult to discern fact from fiction, further obscuring the truth behind the tragic events.
Then there was the discovery of Patrick Lumumba's alibi, initially placing him at his bar on the night of the murder. This provided a momentary flicker of hope, suggesting that perhaps the focus on Knox and Sollecito was misplaced. However, this hope proved to be short-lived. Subsequent investigations revealed inconsistencies in Lumumba's alibi, casting doubt on his whereabouts and reigniting suspicions surrounding Knox and Sollecito. This back and forth, this pendulum swing between potential breakthroughs and subsequent disappointments, characterized much of the investigation, contributing to the protracted and convoluted nature of the case. It also fueled public uncertainty and intensified the debate about the guilt or innocence of the accused.
The emotional ramifications of Meredith Kercher's murder were profound and far-reaching. For her family, the sudden loss of their daughter in such brutal circumstances was devastating. The protracted legal proceedings, the intense media scrutiny, and the conflicting narratives surrounding the case only exacerbated their grief. They had to endure not only the pain of Meredith's death, but also the public dissection of her life and the relentless focus on the suspects, rather than on their beloved daughter. The constant reminders of the crime, replayed through media coverage and court appearances, made it incredibly difficult for them to find closure and begin the healing process. The very public nature of the case meant their private grief was constantly exposed, compounding the trauma they experienced. This case demonstrates the devastating impact of violent crime, not just on the immediate victim, but on the entire family left behind.
The impact on the Perugia community was also significant. This picturesque Italian city, typically known for its vibrant student population and historical charm, became synonymous with a gruesome crime. The influx of international media and the constant presence of investigators disrupted daily life and cast a shadow over the city. Residents felt a sense of unease and vulnerability, and the case became a constant topic of conversation, creating an atmosphere of fear and suspicion. The perception of Perugia as a safe and welcoming place was undoubtedly tarnished, and the community struggled to reconcile the image of their city with the brutal reality of what had happened within its walls. This case illustrates how a single act of violence can ripple outwards, impacting not just individuals but entire communities.
Even beyond the immediate community, the case sparked widespread public interest and debate. The constant media coverage, coupled with the conflicting evidence and shifting narratives, fueled speculation and polarized opinions. People around the world followed the trial closely, forming their own conclusions about the guilt or innocence of the accused. This intense public scrutiny created an environment where individuals involved in the case, including witnesses and legal professionals, faced immense pressure. The case became a global spectacle, demonstrating how high-profile crimes can capture the public imagination and generate intense emotional responses.
Furthermore, the Amanda Knox case highlighted the complexities of international legal proceedings and the challenges of navigating different legal systems. The involvement of multiple nationalities and the differences between Italian and American legal practices added another layer of complexity to the case. This created confusion and frustration for those involved, particularly for the families seeking justice for Meredith. The case served as a stark reminder of the difficult and often protracted nature of international legal battles and the emotional toll they can take on those involved. The years of uncertainty, appeals, and conflicting judgments undoubtedly contributed to the prolonged sense of unease and prevented the families from achieving a sense of closure.
The investigation continued to spiral. While the initial focus had been on Rudy Guede, the drifter whose DNA was found at the scene, the prosecution's attention began to shift towards Amanda Knox and Raffaele Sollecito. The seemingly airtight alibi they presented, being together at Sollecito's apartment, started to crumble under scrutiny. Inconsistencies emerged in their accounts of the evening. Their stories didn't perfectly align, raising suspicions amongst investigators. Furthermore, the prosecution pointed to Knox's behavior at the crime scene, describing it as inappropriate and detached, which they interpreted as a sign of guilt. This perception, coupled with the growing inconsistencies, painted a new narrative, one where Knox and Sollecito were no longer witnesses but potential suspects in Meredith Kercher's murder. The seemingly random break-in now had a potential motive, though it remained shrouded in a complex web of speculation and interpretation.
The prosecution's theory centered on a sex game gone wrong, a theory heavily reliant on circumstantial evidence and interpretations of Knox's and Sollecito's behavior. They alleged that Knox, Sollecito, and Guede had been involved in a drug-fueled sexual assault on Kercher, culminating in her murder. This theory, while dramatic, lacked concrete physical evidence directly linking Knox and Sollecito to the violence inflicted upon Kercher. The forensic evidence was largely contested, with the defense arguing that the DNA samples were contaminated and unreliable due to improper handling at the crime scene. The knife believed to be the murder weapon, found in Sollecito's apartment, had Knox's DNA on the handle and a trace of Kercher's DNA on the blade. However, the defense argued that the trace was too small to be conclusive and could have been transferred through secondary contact. The case became a complex puzzle of conflicting evidence and interpretations, with the prosecution's theory hanging precariously on the circumstantial.
The pressure mounted. Intense interrogation sessions, coupled with the relentless media scrutiny, took their toll on Knox and Sollecito. Sleep-deprived and under duress, Knox made statements that appeared to implicate herself and others. She pointed a finger at Patrick Lumumba, the owner of the bar where she worked, claiming he was at the scene of the crime. This accusation quickly unraveled when Lumumba provided a solid alibi, corroborated by multiple witnesses. Knox later retracted her statement, claiming it was made under coercion. However, the damage was done. This false accusation further fueled the prosecution's narrative of Knox's erratic behavior and deceptive nature, solidifying their suspicion of her involvement. The investigation's trajectory, once seemingly headed towards a resolution with Guede's arrest, now took a sharp turn back toward Knox and Sollecito.
The investigation reached a turning point. Despite the contested evidence and the retractions, the prosecution felt they had enough to proceed. In November 2007, Amanda Knox and Raffaele Sollecito were formally arrested and charged with the murder of Meredith Kercher. The arrest sent shockwaves around the world. The media frenzy intensified, portraying Knox as a manipulative and dangerous femme fatale. The case, already complex and shrouded in mystery, became a global spectacle. Public opinion was sharply divided, with some believing in Knox's innocence and others convinced of her guilt. The legal battle lines were drawn, setting the stage for a protracted and highly publicized trial that would captivate and divide the world for years to come. The arrest, rather than providing answers, only deepened the mystery surrounding Meredith Kercher's tragic death.
It's unsettling, isn't it? We've spent 10 episodes meticulously dissecting this case, examining every piece of evidence, every witness statement, every possible scenario. We've explored the intricacies of the Italian legal system, the cultural differences that may have played a role, and the media frenzy that undoubtedly influenced public perception. Yet, after all this, we're left with a lingering unease. Did the system fail Meredith Kercher? Did it fail Amanda Knox? Or did it simply expose the limitations of our ability to truly understand the complexities of human behavior, the fragility of truth, and the chilling possibility that darkness can lurk beneath the most ordinary exteriors?
The Amanda Knox case remains a stark reminder that truth can be elusive, especially in the glare of international scrutiny and amidst conflicting narratives. The initial portrayal of Amanda as a manipulative, almost diabolical figure contrasted sharply with the image of a frightened young woman caught in a legal nightmare. The prosecution presented a narrative of a sex game gone wrong, fueled by drugs and alcohol. The defense countered with a picture of a flawed investigation, contaminated evidence, and coerced confessions. Which version is closer to the truth? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in the gray area, a place where certainty fades and doubt takes hold. The unanswered questions surrounding Meredith's murder continue to haunt us, a testament to the enduring mystery at the heart of this tragedy.
The image of Amanda Knox, the seemingly ordinary American student abroad, became inextricably linked with this brutal crime. Whether she was a victim of circumstance or a perpetrator of a heinous act remains a topic of debate. The case raises profound questions about the nature of guilt and innocence, the power of perception, and the difficulty of discerning truth from falsehood. It challenges us to confront the uncomfortable possibility that evil can reside in unexpected places, disguised beneath a veneer of normalcy. The case also highlights the critical importance of due process, unbiased investigation, and the presumption of innocence, principles that seem to be strained under the intense pressure of this international case. The shadow of doubt continues to linger.
And that's precisely what makes this case so profoundly disturbing. The possibility that seemingly ordinary individuals are capable of extraordinary acts of violence shatters our sense of security. It forces us to confront the chilling realization that we may never truly know the people around us, that the masks we wear can conceal unimaginable depths. The Amanda Knox saga stands as a sobering reminder of the fragility of life, the unpredictable nature of human behavior, and the enduring power of unanswered questions. How well do we truly know anyone? And what darkness might be lurking beneath the surface of ordinary lives? These are unsettling questions that resonate long after the courtroom lights have dimmed and the headlines have faded.
Thank you for walking with us through the shadows. The story doesn't end here. It lingers, echoing through time, reminding us that the darkest truths often hide in plain sight. Until next time, stay curious and stay vigilant.
Stay safe and keep questioning everything.